I might just get you to keep an eye on because I'm going to share my screen, so I'm kind of going to lose view of everyone. If you could admit people, if extras come in, would you mind please doing that? Awesome. Alrighty, let's get started. So I'm just going to share my screen. And can we see that in slideshow mode?
Yes, right. Perfect. Thanks, Gabby.
Amazing. Okay, well, for those that don't know me, I'm Gabby Fisher. I'm one of the co-presidents of this South Australian branch for the Australian Health Promotion Association, and it's a delight to be here with you all today. So we've also got Dr. Louise Baldwin, who is joining us today, sharing her wisdom, and Dr. Belle Lunay, also on screen, who will be sharing some of her expert advice as well as a reviewer of the Health Promotion Journal of Australia. So welcome to the workshop, Submitting Successful Manuscripts to the Health Promotion Journal of Australia, Tips and Tricks. So, of course, I would absolutely first like to begin with an acknowledgement of country. For me, I'm presenting to you today on the lands of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide region, but of course would like to extend that respect across the country, noting that we've got quite an amazing variety of people joining us from all across Australia. So I just would like to extend that acknowledgement and pay my respects to elders past and present. So without further ado, I'm actually going to hand over to Dr. Louise Baldwin. Thanks, Louise.
Gabby. Hi, everyone, and hi to those that have just joined us. Thanks for coming in. So just over the next kind of 45 minutes or so, we're just going to run through a very relaxed overview to talk about the Health Promotion Journal of Australia and literally, as Gabby said, talk about some tips and tricks. So this is a very relaxed workshop. We've taken all the academic lingo and speak out of it because that's the purpose of making this just a very real journal for our very real members, and to look at, how we can really look at that, what I've called positive publishing and rewarding reviewing with the Health Promotion Journal of Australia. So some people I think who were with us were at the Canberra Symposium where we first did this workshop in the room, which was really fun, and we got some really great feedback, I guess, between each other in terms of publishing and writing tips and tricks, but also in terms of reviewing. And then this has informed offering this online, and I'd really like to just really reinforce that we are super open to lots of questions today, lots of just unmute and yell out. As Gabby said as well, I can't now see everyone on the screen, so please just yell out if you pop your hand up and I can't see you. We're super, super relaxed. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides, and also Belle and Gabby are going to share some of their thoughts and wisdom around publishing and also reviewing. And like I said, the tips and tricks that we go through, they're more in terms of our own practice. They're not like serious tips and tricks in terms of AHPRA and this is what you must do. It's really about us, getting together and learning together and making sure that this journal can be everything that it should be for the association and most importantly for our members. And so just to clarify for those that I haven't met, I'm based in Brisbane. I've had a long association with AHPRA. These days I sit on the national board along with Belle and a number of others. We're a very hands-on board, which is why we all take on these roles. And one of my roles is looking after the Research Evaluation and Evidence Translation Committee, which is a big mouthful, and the journal sits under that. But I might also say as well that in the new year, we'll be really looking for some new members to be involved in that committee, to really make sure that we're grasping the practice side of things and that our publishing is not just all about fancy research. And also really looking at that translation piece as a really strong focus to strengthen practice. I'm first and foremost a practitioner myself, even though I do work a little bit in research and did indulge in a very practice-based PhD, but I'm absolutely a practitioner first and foremost these days, mostly in my consulting practice. So let's get started. We talked about this in Canberra when we did this too. when I was looking for some fancy words to really zhuzh this up a bit and really make a journal workshop not boring at the Canberra workshop, I used the wonderful tools of thesaurus.com and other Googling. And it did suggest that I talk about razzle dazzle or rip roaring reviewing. So let's see how we go with that at the end. Thanks, Gabby. Oh yeah, and then my other first fact, you will also think that this is razzle dazzle and rip roaring. And my second fact is that this is not a boring journal workshop. This is also just the start of a conversation. This hour is going to fly by before we know it. But please reinforce we are very open to random emails, random messaging on LinkedIn, whatever you need in terms of really making this journal very active for our members and our profession. We're going to sprint through understanding storytelling and rigor. And then by the end of the session, we'll be looking at hopefully embracing writing and publishing your work. For some people, the upcoming summer break and early into the new year is a really great writing time, whether you're thinking of doing that or not. Be excited and confident about opportunities to review. And so Belle is going to talk to us a little bit more about reviewing, but the journal does rely on real life people in real life practice being reviewers as well to make sure that what is being published in the journal is actually meeting the needs. And we've got not only got research informed practice, but actually we complete that cycle of practice informed research, and that our research priorities can truly fill the gaps and knowledge that we have in practice. So we get that nice cycle happening. And then also about you engaging with the journal, letting us know what's working and what is not working for you to engage with the journal, especially for that translation piece. Thanks, Gabby. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few snappy facts about the journal. I want to 100% acknowledge our Editor-in-Chief, Associate Professor Carmel Williams, who couldn't be with us today. But to note, she is in fact the driving force, the powerhouse and the complete engine room of the journal. And so Carmel also then has a committee, which you can see here, of names listed down, including some people who are here with us today who are our editorial panel. Thanks, Gabby. So I won't go into this, but I just put these next two slides in actually just to remind you that when you're looking at submitting to the journal, have a good look through the website. These next two slides are literally just two screenshots of the website. Just to remind you, there's a lot of information there. It's super, super helpful. It gives you multiple options in terms of manuscript categories and requirements. We're also hoping in the new year, but that there'll be one that's a little bit more like another category that's a little bit more practice-based, policy brief type. So please keep your ears to the ground for that. But there's multiple ways that you can publish in the journal and lots of information online here as well. So please don't forget to have a look on there when you're thinking about publishing. So just to get us started, can I have a bit of a show of hands or a comment in the chat maybe about who has published in the Health Promotion Journal of Australia? Couple of people, Gemma has, yep. Few people, but maybe not many. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, a few more. Okay, this is good. We'll have lots of new publishers after this little series of workshops. So this is great. And thanks, Gabby. Next slide. And then who has reviewed for the Health Promotion Journal of Australia? Has anyone reviewed articles before? No, some shaking of heads. I'm scrolling through my screen, see if I can see everyone. Okay. Great. So we're hoping to then, I guess, get some excitement about potentially becoming reviewers for the journal, and also demystify a little bit of that process as well. So that's great that we've got some new people. So just to get us started, we're really interested to know your thoughts about two specific questions. And Gabby, are we able to put people into pairs to have a quick sort of 5-minute discussion about this?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Amazing. So Gabby's going to put us into pairs quickly, and we just want you to have a very quick chat with your partner that you get paired with about what delights you about publishing and then what deflates you about publishing.
Right, let me very quickly, we're going to go to 6 rooms.
This is when everyone crosses their fingers that the technology works. Alexandra, I didn't see you pop in before. Hi, I met you in the Online Journal Club a couple of weeks ago. Nice to see you.
All right. Okay. I'm opening the rooms. I should figure out how to do a time limit though, shouldn't I? I don't want you there for the whole time. That'd be awkward.
Otherwise, we can message you in your rooms to tell you, tell you when to come back. Okay, we'll see you in 5 minutes. So what delights you and what deflates you? This is really great feedback for us at the Journal. Hi, everyone. How did you go?
Great.
Technology worked. That's so good. And we got you all back. That is fantastic. Would anyone like to share what some of their delights and deflates were that you discussed at all?
I don't mind sharing from our little room.
Thanks, Leslie.
We did some introductions that took sort of a minute or so. So that did limit our chats. But most of us in our group haven't published before, either in your journal or in any others. So we had a balance between, you know, the deflation of finding time to actually sit down and really understand what is needed to make sure that you optimize your opportunities, that you will be successful. I'm a second year PhD student over in WA, and I think for me, I've not experienced the deflation of the desk reject the way that people tell you you're gonna feel. And I don't know if that's naivety, but I've kind of felt like, you know, it's just not found its place yet. So, you know, you want to just keep moving forward. So I haven't necessarily personally felt deflated, but we did share excitement collectively that sharing your work and your new knowledge that you've found through research is what spurs us on to move towards publishing so that we can share our work with others. So that's really what we talked about.
Amazing. Thanks, Leslie. Would anyone else like to very quickly add any thoughts before we keep moving?
I wouldn't mind if I can jump in.
Yeah, Gareth, please.
I think I was really lucky in the beginning of my career to engage with more senior academics while I was doing the field work and kind of and building the practice. We would collectively write together, and it would bring in kind of what I'm doing in the field with kind of more rigorous like theories and frameworks and things like that. And while I haven't published in a journal specifically, I've always contributed to book chapters, and that's been a really interesting relationship that I've been able to have. But now that I'm on the other side of that, as technically the academic in the PhD, I'm really excited about, you know, the translation of my practice into my work and putting it in academic literature. But I've got to play that different role now as the researcher, not as the community member or the field work or what have you. And so I'm in an awkward place where I'm trying to find, you know, still the joy of writing about practice, but also having to engage in the academic literature in a way that I didn't have to when I was in the field.
That is an unplanned but beautiful segue to our next section. So yay us, that is really good. Thank you, Gareth. I wonder if everyone else can share their thoughts in the chat then so we can capture them as well, because this is really great feedback for us at the Journal. But in the interest of time, I'll keep motoring through. Okay, thanks, Gabby. So in terms of delights and deflates reviewers, we, in fact, in preparation for when this workshop was held in Canberra, did a very brief little survey amongst some of our colleagues who we know are reviewers, just to get some feedback from the other side and to then sort of inform new publishing work. So on the next slide, we've got a little bit of feedback from them. So Belle, may I hand over to you to go through this? So Belle is going to take us through this little section. Belle is a reviewer and an associate editor for the Journal, and we'll chat through the next couple of slides.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks for the welcome. It's great to have everybody here. Yes, so I am a member of the editorial board, but I'm also an academic, but I'm also real, just to clarify. And I think just to give a bit of context to the notion of a real reviewer, some journals you might have heard outsource reviews to other companies, a bit like you have panel providers for doing surveys and things like that. That's not HPJA. We are very authentic. We scout around for reviewers, oftentimes up to 3, definitely 2 reviewers minimum. And we're trying very hard to find reviewers who have practical experience at the moment. So not just an academic who's going to potentially be maybe on their moral high ground and rip your paper to shreds, but rather somebody who understands the applicability of the work that you're doing. So the first, this is a collection, as Lou said, of some of the feedback from people who have, who are reviewers and who have commented on what they love when they first open your paper. And so first point is that Carmel does have a look at every paper that comes into the journal and sort of scans it and then decides who should be the handling editor. And then it comes to us. And when I review papers, when I'm not on the other end of the handling editor role, things that I like and my colleagues kind of like is that the topic is really novel. So it is something new. It's making an original contribution to knowledge, and that the novelty is clearly explained. We love when research moves beyond that. Further research is required as an outcome, and has a very clear research translation component, as we've kind of been hammering in home here. HPJA aims to be really holistic. Quite obviously, we're not the only health promotion journal in the world, and there are others. But the thing that sets us apart is that we're a journal designed for our membership, for the association. And so we are really interested to think about health promotion as holistic, and we're interested in work that might be akin to writing a policy brief, if you think about it that way, or work that might be akin to a report which outlines where practice meets research. And so what we want are manuscripts that speak to where both of those things come together. So not just theory-driven empirical research. There are other brilliant journals for that, but this is what we're about here at HPJA. So we still would love to have an excellent and really kind of detailed description of the methodology that was undertaken, but that can also be a procedure. So please don't be put off when you look at the sections that are required in different papers and paper options. A procedure or a recipe of what you've done and a logic for that is perfectly fine too. The embeddedness of the work that you're doing within contemporary principles for health promotion is critical. And we love to see where work talks about standards for health promotion practice, be it the various charters that we've had since the inception of the Ottawa Charter and its various updates, or IUHPE competency areas. That's all really critical. If you're not sure, email us and we can provide a bit of a community of practice to support. We've said this lots of times. People love clearly, but where they can see in the manuscript that the work is clearly embedded in health promotion practice and the implications for policy and practice are articulated. This next one is super critical, recognising that there are structural determinants of health. So I see a lot of papers coming through the journal still that are focused on individual level behaviour change, which is not wrong and has a place, but there is compelling evidence of the interrelatedness between individual behaviours and the contexts and conditions and the situations that people live and experience their lives living within. And so those contextual factors really need to be acknowledged in every manuscript. It needs to be new information. We'll talk more about that later. It needs to be an original contribution, something novel. I personally love it when the other articles within the HPJA that are on your topic that you're writing about have also been acknowledged. So recognising that you're contributing and developing on from what's already been written and published in the journal is a really great idea. Obviously, good quality, clear writing. It doesn't need to be mind-blowing, academic, difficult to understand anyway. Speak. But there are journal conventions, and so it's really important that those are followed. I love seeing supportive tables and figures that are headed, labelled correctly and that enhance the paper. So don't be shy. I love receiving papers where there's beautiful diagrams that capture what, rather than just a verbose paper with heaps and heaps of text. So don't shy away from that. For every positive, there's a negative. Shall I continue on? What deflates us? Obviously, the opposites of everything I've just said, fundamentally. Complicated titles, where there's just not enough detail about what was done. It's really nice for people. People come to this. I think if you to think about your paper as a recipe that somebody else could follow and write as much as you can about what you did so that somebody else could take that pearl of wisdom and it spark them to do something similar, or to have that context of what you did so that they can understand the results or the findings or the outcomes better. That's really important as well. This one on undeclared conflicts of interest is something that we're developing for the journal, and as ARPA broadly. You might have heard, those who were at the symposium potentially heard about the workshop we did on the commercial determinants of health and understanding how there is a potential for conflicts of interest that might arise in the kind of work that we do in health promotion. This is really about declaring sources of funding, partnerships that might go on that are part of your professional work only. And so the example here might be where a source of funding has come from a business or a corporation or an industry that has a motive other than health at the centre of their key business. And so that might be a for-profit industry that is known to contribute to health-related harms. So tobacco, alcohol, textiles, firearms, et cetera, et cetera. So just a recognition and disclosing that interest so that that context can be considered within when somebody's reading the work that you're publishing. What we don't like is that where an intervention's been kind of turned into a manual, that it's really sort of unappealing to read. If they want to read the manual, they can just email you. Disengagement from the so what. So at the bottom of the abstract, there's a section for so what, and certainly within the papers, we ask you to tell us, why should we care? Why should somebody reading this paper want to know about the work that you're doing? So if there's sort of disengagement from the so what, and it's purely about what was done rather than what the point of what was done, then that's a direct it actually just doesn't really progress through the second round of reviews. So it's critical. Any RCT into complexity people don't like that. I mean, it's not, RCTs are great. I think they're a really important form of evidence. They're the gold standard, in fact, but in the absence of context, then, where it's difficult to follow the narrative, then that can be a black mark against the manuscript. The sections of the paper, sometimes it can be hard to get a sense of the flow of the paper. So when you're writing, I would be less worried about whether the writing is good enough, but more so whether somebody could follow the structure of the paper. So that one's important as well. Don't worry so much about whether the writing is good enough. That can be finessed, no dramas. And then overly complicated language or jargon. As Lou has explained, we're really trying to make this journal something that sets it apart from the others in health promotion is that it's practice focused. And so we want it to be accessible to health promotion practitioners very broadly in a whole range of different sectors. So I think that focusing on that would be a real goal. Thanks for the opportunity, Lou.
Thanks, Belle. That was terrific. Just before I hand over to Gabby to talk about being a first-time submitter, does anyone have any quick questions for Belle? Nope. Okay, fantastic. So Gabby's going to just take us through some feedback that we got as well around being a first-time submitter and like advice to authors, but also share her experience to us as recently being published in the Health Promotion Journal of Australia. Thanks, Gabby.
Thanks, Lou. Yeah, so in the interest of time, I won't talk on for too long, but we thought it would be a good opportunity as someone that I very much am not in the research space and am calling myself maybe a novice pracademic, having, as Lou mentioned, just recently submitted in the HPJA earlier this year, and thought it would be useful just to share some of my insights from that experience, and hopefully provide people with a bit of confidence to perhaps do the same. So actually, it was fantastic to hear earlier, Gareth, your insights, because I think that links very incredibly to point one, which was probably one of the biggest points I actually just wanted to get across today, was if an opportunity arises where you are able to link in with an experienced journal submitter or a researcher, or to be a co-author with you, I would highly recommend it. That was how my this paper came to be for me, where I certainly was not taking the lead. I was one of the co-authors as part of the drafting process, but it was led by Professor Adrian Bauman. And that experience for me initially felt extremely daunting. However, it was a fantastic journey to go through and to really understand the process that is required for submitting to a journal, which I would have really had no idea how to even begin without some assistance. So I would just highly recommend, if that opportunity comes to be, to really jump on it. Also reading papers in the journal, first and foremost, to understand the formatting and how, as Belle said before, the flow and how the story is told within the journal. There are a few points here which I think have already been spoken a fair bit about, so I won't hone in on them too much. You can read them. Just a few other things was around being really clear on the work that you are submitting within the manuscript. For me, there was some fantastic formative research that occurred as part of the research that we submitted, and I really wanted that to be included. And I, was encouraged by my co-authors that couldn't have a small, that can be noted, but that's not the focus of what the manuscript was. So to be really clear on what it is that you're submitting to, what was the research objective, and not letting it get kind of bogged down by additional research or formative stuff that might have occurred that you don't need to spend a bunch of your word count on. And then just a few other things I would reiterate as a someone who works in the policy space, that the so what is so important to understand. What does this actually mean, though, for policy and practice? How can we take this knowledge and actually translate it to practice? And then just finally is around absolutely be prepared for the feedback and how you might respond to that. And have the confidence. I certainly didn't at the start of the process, but now having been through it, I think it's like sometimes going on a roller coaster. You're really scared to do it, but then once you do it, you want to do it again. So have the confidence and have the ambition to translate and share your impact and the amazing work that you're doing, particularly for those of us that are kind of practice and policy practitioners out there. So I'm going to hand back over to, I believe, yourself, Lou.
Yeah, thanks, Gabby. It's fascinating and some really great insights. And it's also, I think, important to remember when you do get that first round of reviewer feedback, also that as Belle was talking, we're all very real people, many of whom you will know in your careers as well. That a lot of the suggestions sometimes are just trying to be value adds. They're not always criticisms. I know sometimes as a publisher myself, I've got like links to other papers back that they think will be useful, and I think I don't need that. What are you telling me that for? But actually, then when I put it down, take a breath, look back at it, I think actually that's a really interesting perspective. I need to have a look at that and see if that can add value to my work. So I think that's a nice kind of thing to remember, is when you do get those comments back, that they are absolutely meant to be constructive first and foremost. So I'm going to take you very quickly now through a little process, and Belle beautifully used that analogy of the recipe, and I see in the chat that that's been acknowledged as a really great way of thinking about things. These top tips, I should preface by saying these are not like official AHRPA or Health Promotion Journal of Australia top tips. These are actually just mine that I do a lot of these workshops with students and HDRs and early career professionals and practitioners, looking at making sure we can build that Australian and Southwest Pacific based evidence so that we can continue to grow the health promotion profession. So these are some that I work through, and it's a really nice way to just, I guess, step up and outside from your project and just think about the reader from the other side and why you might even be publishing your work. So first of all, we talk about avoiding the yawn. So don't smatter us in academic language. Don't just repeat boring facts about, I can't tell you how many times we hear things about the need for physical activity, the need for standing desks, the need for, not smoking, like all of that's well published. So just give us a snappy reference to that and then move on to what's really important for you, so about your work. So make it engaging and absolutely avoid the yawn. And I'm sure we could all say how many times that we've started to read the very first sentence of a paper and just thought, no, it can't be bothered. That's just too boring. I can't even go there. So then think about create an interesting plot. You want to engage your colleagues, engage new colleagues that you don't even know who might be reading this paper. So create an interesting plot about your work. So what is that story that you're actually trying to tell us? Think about knowing your main characters. So rather than getting bogged down and overwhelmed by who are my participants, is that rigor? Do I need ethics? Is that a valid way of saying things? Just think about sketching out your paper first in terms of creating that plot, and then thinking about, well, if I am telling this story, who are the main characters in my story? So who are the lead characters? Who are the supporters? What part of an environment or community do they live in? What part of the system are they in? But just think about explaining and kind of sketching out in your own little storyboard. And people that have done workshops with me will know that I love a butcher's paper and a coloured pens. So I would always encourage handwriting because it's really incredible for your design thinking and your creative brain. But also know your audience. So actually take some time to make a couple of dot points on your beautiful big butcher's paper, because now I'm going to use that, about who's your audience, like who on earth do you want to read this? And for those of you that are academics, having been an academic, I'm not currently practicing as a full-time academic, but I have absolutely been in that university system, and it is overwhelmingly drowning sometimes with the metrics that you get hammered with in terms of publishing. So it is easy to fall into the just pumping out papers for the sake of pumping out papers, rather than actually just taking a step back and go, who needs to read this and who needs to know my information and this story that I'm telling? Think about, is there a sequel? So in your project or program or piece of research or whatever story you might be telling us, are there a couple of parts to this? Like, is there a sequel coming, or do you need to sort of jam it all in together? Now, one thing that you can always reach out to a mentor or seek support, or again, at the end of this, we're going to ask you how else AHRPA can support you in terms of this. So maybe it's a community of practice, but there is a thing in journal land called salami slicing, which is when you have a project, but because of the pressures, and this is particularly for academics, on getting lots of papers, it means that a project is sliced up into so many little pieces to try and get 5 or 6 papers out of it, but actually you need to just pull it all into one. That can happen. Or sometimes in practice, we find that some of our practice-based projects are so complex that actually we might be able to divide them into a couple of parts and tell a little bit of a sequel of a story of events that's happening. That often comes with our community-based work. So just have a think about that. Know your audience. Is there a sequel coming to your work? Is there a plot twist? So what's the big finding? What's the big aha moment? It's perfectly fine to also add another piece of valid evidence to an existing body of evidence. And we absolutely need that in health promotion. You know, we really only started hardcore publishing in health promotion probably in around the 70s in terms of really getting, and that was still health education style, but we're still a young-ish kind of profession in terms of hardcore evidence. And we all know in terms of advocacy and funding and policy change, we need to continue to build that evidence. So it's perfectly fine to publish something that adds to an existing body of evidence, but also just think about what is the plot twist? Like, what's the aha moment in this? And what is the thing that you found? And how might you convey that and tell your story? And then ask yourself, once you've done this on your lovely butcher's paper with your coloured pens, think about, once someone's read your article, complete this sentence for them. They might be saying to someone, oh, you've got to read this article because, and what do you want that person to say about your article? So that's a really nice way that you can structure that. What we're going to do in the next, I'm literally going to give you 3 minutes because we're 100% on a sprint. And also it's good not to overthink this. So just on a piece of paper, whatever you've got near you, or even just think through it yourself. But just for the next 3 minutes, I'm just going to talk you through these couple of dot points and just think about a project or a piece of research or something that you're currently involved with or have been involved with, and how might you write this up and start to tell your story. So first and foremost, the barbecue test. You meet someone new at a barbecue and they ask you about your latest work. What do you tell them? And make sure you avoid the yawn factor. What's the big deal about your work? Why is it so important? What gets you up every day and what's so important about this project? What's the key plot? And that's where you start to form your method and your rigor. And as Belle said, we don't need to get hung up on theories and things like that. Just write the process and the recipe of what you've been doing and you can form it later. Who are the main characters? So that's often your participants, your communities, maybe it's policy, people, whatever, whoever the main characters of your work are. Who's your audience? Why would they care? What do you want your audience to remember? Are they coming back to read your sequel? And how and why might they do that? And then what contribution is this work making to health promotion? So I'll give you a couple of minutes of quiet time with that. We'll leave that up on the screen so you can have a look. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep chatting, but feel free to keep doodling your ideas down and creating your sketch about your program. What we want to really make sure is that the journal is really part of your health promotion toolkit. So whether you're a researcher, whether you're a practitioner, whether you work in policy, wherever you might work, we want the journal to be part of that toolkit that you have for health promotion. After all, we've all got such a responsibility to make sure that we can create the healthiest communities we can across the areas that we work in. So we really need a series of tools to help us with that. So we'd like you to get the journal to a place where it is absolutely about publishing. It's about participatory reviewing and encouraging you to think about becoming a reviewer and what that might look like, but also being part of the translation toolkit. So that's also a great way to think about the journal when you're looking at shaping your work to be published in the Health Promotion Journal of Australia. That's a kind of use we would love to see for the journal to have, that publishing, being part of reviewing, translating cycle to help with all sorts of health promotion practice. In terms of editors then, and Belle, please jump in here at any time, given that you are an associate editor. But in terms of editors of the Health Promotion Journal, we aim to publish manuscripts that are new, interesting, important, useful and ethical. It will attract and retain subscribers and members. That will attract new authors and readers, will be well cited. That's really important for building a rigorous evidence base to support prevention. And we've all been in situations where we've had to justify, I'm sure, why we need funding for prevention or why we need more funding or why it needs to be a greater priority across organisations, communities, decision making. That it will have a practical and positive impact, that it'll reflect diversity in research, evaluation, policy and practice perspectives, and it'll absolutely create healthy debate and discussion. It needs to be that point as well. Belle, did you have anything to add to that, it being one of the associate editors?
Nothing to add, but Lou, I'd be interested to hear from people here who are considering publishing. What is in it for them? You know, who is their target audience, do they think, and what do they get out of publishing? You know, is it a KPI thing for their workplace, or, you know, what is it? Because for academics, obviously we've discussed its metrics, and you don't need to talk back now, but if you're willing to pop it in the chat, I think that'd be really useful for the journal to know.
Thank you. Great point. Publishing ethics and copyright. So here's just some, I guess, important things to keep in mind, particularly if you haven't published before. The article should always be submitted to one journal at a time, so you can't submit multiple times. The same article should not be published in more than one place. Sometimes if you've presented your work at a conference, that will class as it being published, so it's really important to check with that conference as well. Several articles based on the same research must each make a unique contribution. So that's that like salami slicing thing that I was talking about, that people call it, where you try and get lots and lots of papers, but they kind of overlap a bit much. So it's perfectly fine to have a sequel or like a lovely longevity of articles that tell a long story. And in fact, I'm involved in writing a series around a massive systems change piece of work that's happening here in Queensland. And we're really trying to publish what's been happening and that organic kind of development of that work, because it is really important. So it's a bit of a series, but it's important to not overlap and repeat stuff. And also acknowledge all those that have contributed to the work. And remember, so much of health promotion work involves communities, and it absolutely should. And in many cases, we'd absolutely encourage community members to be acknowledged as authors. Sometimes you'll see community coalitions also recognised as authors. If they're not authors, then absolutely acknowledging those people in the acknowledgements part of the paper is really important. In terms of why publish, and now this will be interesting to see, I would love your feedback, as Belle said, on why publish and what's in it for you to publish. Some of the other reasons that have come out of other work around the HPJA have been that communication of new research to other researchers, excuse me, knowledge generation, contribute to the advancement of the profession, benefit the wider community, demonstrate partnerships, secure funding, employer expectations, personal achievement and personal satisfaction. Thanks, Gabby. Sorry, I'm just getting my voice. Always happens that you need to get a croaky throat. The Online Journal Club is something that you can join. Excuse me. in terms of that's held a couple of times a year, and information on the website there as well. So that's a really great thing that you can join other people to chat about different articles and what might constitute that kind of publishing. Excuse me. And that's a good time to throw to, would anyone have any questions before I lose my voice all at the same time? Very happy to open it up to any questions. I think we've got 5 minutes left, which is great timing. Any at all? Gabby, is there anything in the chat?
Some fantastic sharing on what, what's in it for me. Or some people have added in there your turn, which is fantastic, Amanda. Kim says, not a KPI, but a value add to best practice, evidence-based practice, consumer outcomes, and showcases great work. Agreed. And then Gareth shared codifying my practice after a few years in the field in a public space, so the journal, to kick off conversations with other people doing health promotion and teaching health promotion.
Amazing. Thank you all. Any questions or even any comments on how might ARPA continue to support you as members, as practitioners, to be able to publish? Any thoughts or feedback you'd like to give there?
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
This might be specific to me, but I'm really curious of a kind of definition of Australasia and how much in my research I should be shaving off aspects and regions that are not directly Australia related, and whether or not that's kind of the strategic pitch. So I'm just curious if there's a working definition and this is included, this isn't included.
That's a really great question, guys, because we've actually got a special edition coming out midway through next year. We're just working on it at the moment on, and it was called the Southwest Pacific. Now it's called Asia Pacific. So honestly, I think it's a little bit loose. And because all the boundaries are a little bit different, like if you look at WHO, Western Pacific region boundary is different to the IUHPE boundary. So I think we're very open to anything in this region because collectively learning and sharing together is really what it's about. So I think it's open and pitch your work as it is now for sure.
Cool.
Any other questions?
It's not a question, but just a comment. I know that some journals, like some of the medical journals, have a review about what's happening in other journals. And I don't know from a copyright perspective if that's something that is problematic, but sort of like an overview about what's happening in the field. That sort of, just in terms of other people being able to contribute that as opposed to it being an editorial per se, is that an opportunity to sort of create that more contemporary practice and in line with some of the things I'm seeing come up in the chat as well?
I think that's a great thought, Gemma. Belle, from an associate editor point of view, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a great idea. I think usually that would take the format of a commentary piece where it's providing a commentary on the state of affairs up to that point in time of publication. And definitely those kind of pieces are welcome in the journal. Yep. I think, Lou, you showed the slide earlier on where there's the different article types.
Yep.
Yep. Thanks, Gemma.
That's a great point. Any other questions? Comments, thoughts? Requests for help? Anything? What about ideas of what ARPA might be able to do to support publishing? Would a community of practice be a good thing?
I am also we would love to hear how you found today's workshop. We wouldn't be good health promoters if we didn't evaluate today. So I would also just say that I'm about to pop a link in the chat. So if you wanted to also add some thoughts in there, if you didn't want to kind of air them here, that's also a great way as well.
Amazing, thank you. And thanks, Kim. I see in the chat about tips and tricks and fact sheets, things like that. So absolutely, we can look at doing that. And coming along to the Online Journal Club is a really great way. I know years ago when I first saw that, I thought, oh, that sounds totally boring. I'm not doing that. But actually, in fact, Alexandra and I were in the last one together. It's a pretty interesting conversation. I actually really enjoy it. Alexandra, how did you find the Online Journal Club last time?
Yeah, I think that's a useful group, and it would definitely be useful for anyone who is considering publishing, because it gives you a sort of deep dive into how, you know, what sort of articles there are, what the sort of thing they're looking for, and then everyone chipping in with sort of weaknesses or strengths of the paper that might help you inform it. So definitely, yeah, it's worthwhile and good to learning more about the practice.
Yeah, I found that too, just different people's perspective. And at the last Online Journal Club, there was extensive discussion about the so what section and just how important it is, and also that it should really go beyond just the project and actually think about health promotion more broadly and really structure that section. Whereas in some papers, it's a little bit of it's like a last minute thing. Like, you know, it's like, oh, quick, we've got to do that so what section, and we quickly throw something in there about so what, more research is needed or something. But actually the value of that so what section was really important, and really structuring that around what it means for practice, what it means for research, what it means for policy. So yeah, certainly I found that super interesting, and even just reflecting on my own writing. Well, I'm going to say 12:31, because for us Queenslanders it's 12:31, but that's right on time. Any questions, final thoughts, or Gabby, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Lou. And I just want to reiterate a huge thanks to Lou and Vel for sharing your insights today, and a huge thanks to all of you taking time out of your day to come and hear more and learn more about how you might go about submitting to the Health Promotion Journal. I do think we want to get a quick photo if people are okay with that. I know people are probably wanting to log off very quickly. If people want to turn their cameras on. I would get in trouble if I didn't take a photo. So that would be amazing if we could just take a quick photo. So I'm going to see how we go. That will be all right. All right, everyone smile. Great. Okay. As I said, we've popped an evaluation link in the chat. If you have a chance, we would love you to do that. We want to do more of this next year, so please do give us feedback or ideas on what you know, yourself as an ARPA member would like from us as professional development opportunities. And as always, yeah, please reach out if anyone has any further questions to any of us. You have the ARPA SA email that sent out this invite, so I can also kind of triage that on to the lovely Lou or Belle as required. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you all so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. That was great.
Thank you.